Hi, Scary. I'm going to go over the container gardening. I haven't mentioned a whole lot about it lately, so we can try to do a tour of that. First one is the garlic that we've grown earlier, or ginger. The ginger we've grown earlier. This is the stuff that I said wasn't coming along as good and might not do as well, but it did sit on the counter long enough. It did put up some bulbs. I put it in the pot. These are temporary pots. I will be putting them in a bigger pot here in a minute, or here in a little while. This here is some of the sweet potatoes slips. It's kind of gotten too tall or whatever, too long. You can take these and make cook these for a green, and they're supposed to take really well if you like cooking greens. So we could do that with them. I may so far be giving some away or whatever. These are the older ginger. This is, I'll probably put 3 or 4 or probably 4 of these, maybe 5 of these in this deal here. It'll cover up pretty much this whole container. We did it last year, and it, I mean, it pretty much, we were getting, you know, big areas. Each one was about the size of a basketball. So anyway, and over here, and when we got in, I planted some lemongrass. Not ideal. In fact, this is pretty shallow, but it's you know, it's probably triple in size. It's doing well. We got the oregano and the other herb there. This is Okinawa spinach, and like I say, if you you can just use these leaves, keep it, you know, this time of year you want to keep it growing so it won't get bitter on you, which it shouldn't, because it doesn't tend to get bitter, but you know, you don't want to stress it or whatever. Give it plenty of water, and you know, it's doing well. Do want to wash it off because sometimes the birds come along, but if you know anybody that's got some, you can just clip these things off. And even though we're getting up in the 90s, you can clip it off and stick it in a potting mix and put it in shade, and it'll start, you know, after about a week. It'll look bad for a week, and then it'll start growing. It's that robust or whatever. This here is the grande peach. It still hasn't made peaches. You know, it's got plenty of peaches on it, but it hasn't. They haven't started filling out yet. Over here we've got Tryout Aprium, and it made 2 apriums, and they were good. They tasted well. It only produced 2. I'm kind of disappointed because it bloomed a little bit later, so I thought it should have produced better, but it didn't. So I don't know. It might just be nice pollination from the other one. This here is the cherry of the Rio Grande. It didn't bloom this year, probably because it did. I mean, we got down to 12, 13 degrees. It took a lot of damage, and I have noticed when things take damage like that, a lot of times they don't bloom back out. But it should come out blooming out next year, as long as we don't get another big freeze. Like I said, we've got bad freezes 3 years in a row, 2 really bad ones, and one of them we got down in the lower 20s when you were in between. So this is the container. Kind of show them all the different dwarfs. This isn't the dwarf problem. They got, especially these here. I've been growing tomatoes in them for 2 straight years, spring and fall, and they've just got a lot of different diseases. It's got a lot of blight. The late blight, I think, already hit them and taking them out. So, but this one it wasn't doing as well. It did take disease first, but it produced a lot of tomatoes. I just didn't collect them because I was having all the tomatoes. At the other one, they're easier to collect. I was out there, so I just hadn't been collecting them because it just, you know, but it's Everglades, so it did produce a lot. And the other ones, this is the Thai pepper, it's called. Variegated, well, it says T-E-D, Thai white. And it's got the variegated leaves on it. And I think that's the Greek oregano. This is more of the plant. Anyway, I did go back in here to fill in some more on the bed. I don't know for sure what I'm going to put in it because we didn't have a whole lot left, so I just filled it back up. That's the only thing. If you put a lot of organic matter in it, it does kind of compress, and then you get to where you got 3 or 4 inches from the top, so you have to add stuff to it, which isn't a problem unless you're kind of continuously growing in it. I do want to show you something I thought was kind of interesting over here. I planted these Martin Luther King's birthday, and they produced a couple of tomatoes. I have kept them watered, have not fertilized them. This one here is the, that one there is the coyote. This one here is purple bumblebee. That one here is the blush tomato. It's just interesting that as much as these been neglected, I throw a little bit of water in the bottom. That's about all that's done. They look terrible. They haven't got any sun. They're underneath there, but they still produce some fruit. So if you're looking at an area and you say, hey, I don't think I can grow tomatoes. I don't have any. It's not getting any direct sunlight. They produce a few. So don't be too scared to try something. As long as you're getting some sunlight on it. I mean, you know, the sun comes from this area, but at least the house, I don't think the sun ever hits those tomatoes. So they'll still make sometimes. They won't make as much. And like I say, they're just growing roots down up underneath their seed tray. So if you come over here, this is the older peach tree. It did make some nice peaches. It has died back some, but this peach tree, it went through the flood. It was completely underwater for 3 or 4, 5 days. It's still, you know, still putting out some growth. So it's still producing again next year. It is getting to the end of its life. This is tropic snow. Over here, my line has finally started putting out some new growth. I mean, it's been blooming, but never put out any new growth yet. It's finally started putting out some growth. I did put a little more fertilizer on it. A newer plant that I've got here is sweet leaf. It's good. It's a real sweet leaf. So you put it in your salads or stuff, and my wife really likes it. You just take them, you just pull them off, and it comes out. This is the lemonade tree, the Jiu-Jitsu tree. It's got, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 lemons on it. Shouldn't let stuff this size put lemons on it, but you know, I've got a big tree back in the back, so I don't really care if it stunts it or whatever, but it did still put on 9. It does seem to tend to overproduce, but that's usually not that much of a problem. I did fertilize it a little bit. It is starting to put on a little bit of new growth on it. But it's doing well. This is another one of the lychee trees that I bought this year. I did go ahead and pot it up. I still got this stake on it. I need to take it off sometime, but right now it's still kind of floppy. I want to go ahead and root down good. More of my sweet potato slips. I've got another Jiu-Jitsu tree back there. I got a loquat tree back up over there. That way I've got in a pot so I can keep it when it gets down freezing. I can put it in the garage so it won't freeze the fruit. This is where I've trialed just the regular tomatoes in pots. The cherry tomatoes are doing well. The Hostinator, I will say I took 2 big tomatoes off of it already. They were green tomatoes, but somebody at work was wanting some green tomatoes, and I've got way more tomatoes than I can deal with. They are looking nice, and these are Sun Gold and Blush, and then that one over there is going to be Sunrise Bumblebee. So they're making good. You know, if you can get a pot this size, you can grow regular size, even cherry tomatoes, and make some. You know, you're not making a whole bunch, but just for a single person or whatever. I mean, that's a fair amount of tomatoes. I like cherry tomatoes. You don't get problems with blossom end rot that you do on some of your bigger tomatoes. So that's something to always think about. The Blush didn't make that many, but it's the one that's got the, looks like kind of like peppers or something on it. But you know, it's good novelty tomato. It doesn't seem to have near the production the others do. Stopping over here, this is another, I think it's another tropic snow. Let's see. Yeah. This tropic snow is actually younger than the other one, but half of this tree's died. This isn't hurting it. That's just one of the mushrooms growing off of it. I think it's called false turkey tail, or turkey tail 1, 2. I was out with the mushroom guy a lot, and I know I can identify them, but there's a difference. A false turkey tail and a turkey tail one, and I never could figure out one from another because I didn't care that much. This here is growing well though. I'll trim this off when I get a chance. I did trim off all the suckers on it, so it's, you know, it's still growing. It'll still produce fruit next year. This is a lychee tree. It does have some lychees on it, and it was the only one that bloomed this year. So, because the other ones, of course, hadn't bloomed because I didn't have it before then. But those little lychees will probably make it. So, you can grow some. It had a bunch of blooms on it though, and if I would have had, I think a secondary tree that was blooming at the same time, you know, I'd make, you know, 10 times the amount of fruit. But I think these are going to, of course, I said that earlier too. I think this is going to go ahead and make it. The tree is starting, putting out a little bit of growth on it because, you know, it is a little bit stressed. You can see the leaves in here, but this is a longan tree. It's looking healthier. We got a little frog. A tree frog right there. We'll leave him alone because he's probably eating. I think this had some scale or something on it. I ate something, if I remember right, and I never did spray for him. But it's good, healthy, and it's looking a lot better than it did. It had kind of got stressed for some reason. I think it could have been just because it's in a smaller pot and I put it up to a bigger pot. So it's starting to grow. It's a balancing act when you do these container trees. This is a nice size, but if you get it much bigger than this, then it's going to be too big to shove in the garage. So you're kind of fighting back and forth. If you want to grow, you want to put on growth, but you don't want to put on too much. So, you know, vigor is both your friend and your enemy. You're right by a tree, son. These are my blueberries they've already made. Produced all the blueberries. And let's walk up over here. Well, we'll start down here. This is a pumpkin mandarin, and it's got some little mandarins all over it. Not as much as the other ones do, but this is probably the better tasting one of the mandarins that I have now. I'm trying to get a cashew, but because I really like this. It's one of those real small ones. It tastes like the really good ones that you get in the store, the sweeties and stuff. That's that kind of a mandarin. So this here is the pomelo, Chandler pomelo. I didn't think it put any fruit yet, but it's got a real big one here. Now, they're light right now. They'll get heavier as they start filling out. But it's got one here and another one's up over here. So it did produce two. It might produce more. That's the two I've seen so far. But it's doing all right. This one, I really need to start remembering these names. The clementine mandarin. And it has produced a bunch of them. And it's got them all over it. You know, that's going to produce a lot of fruit. So, and they'll go ahead and make, and they'll taste good. This here is my Myers lemon. It has been through a lot. It's about probably 10 years old. It's been flooded. I do bring it in on really cold weather because they don't handle the cold real well. If you can get one of these that's a root cutting, the good thing about them is if you put them in ground and they freeze back to ground, they will sprout back up from the roots a lot of times. I know my neighbor has got one. I gave him that one that was a really cutting. It has frozen through both of it. He didn't really cover them up either time, and he did get, you know, it hasn't made anything because we've had 3 straight years of cold weather, but it did start putting out some new growth this year, so that's nice. Now this is my older pomelo, and it's got several fruits on it, and you know, making okay. I wish you had a little more vigor to it. I mean, you had a little more fertilizer to it. This is Tropic Beauty. It's always kind of struggled a little bit, and I don't know if it's a potting mix or what. Here's some of the figs I'm growing. And my figs have, a lot of them are produced. And this is my second or third year tree. Black Malta, I think, or Malta Black. It's got several figs all going up and down it. If you leave them in containers, they will come more fruiting because you put a little bit of strain on them, and when you strain them, that causes them, because this is just a bloom is all these are. That's not actual fruit, it's a bloom that's unfertilized, and that's what you eat, is you're eating the blooms. That's not actually a fruit. Google the deal about figs. It's really interesting. That's a common fig, so it's unpollinated because we don't have anything to pollinate them around here. There's a wasp that pollinates them. This here's the green issue or strawberry verde fig. It got burnt back some. It has not put any figs out this year, and probably just because of cold weather bit back the fruit, bit back the tree. But this tree, we've been here 5 years, and it was probably 4 or 5 years old when we had it. It was in a pot, and we stuck the whole pot in one of those big pots, stuck it in the ground, and you put holes all around the pot so you can get the roots out of it. It's a small tree. So if you want a fig tree that doesn't get really big, green issue is a good one. Now if you pour the fertilizer to them, you're going to get a nice big fig that's not going to produce. Over here I planted some cucumbers in a pot, and I am getting some cucumbers. I had this great idea that I'll grow off the pot and grow down it. Basically I went through the fence. But it's produced probably a dozen cucumbers, and there's another big one over here. And about that size. So if you like the kind of pickling top cucumbers, the good thing about growing pickling top cucumbers, you can pickle them or you can slice them. If you just get a slicing cucumber, all you can do is slice them, they don't pickle well. But it is getting hot. We're starting to get up close to 100 degrees, very humid weather, so they're going to play out regardless when we get that kind of weather. So if your garden is, if you're down south and your garden's starting to die out, it's going to happen. These are the figs. Some of them are starting to make. That one's getting close. What you'll see on a fig, they get like that. They're starting to swell up, and then they'll kind of sag. When they sag, they're ready. They'll be soft on the inside. These are some of the smaller ones. This is a pomegranate tree. They really need to pot up in a bigger pot. These are all different types of varieties. This is champagne. That one is a Barbie. This one, this is Malta Black. That's a different one. This is Papa John's. That was my oldest son's favorite. Salem Black, and Salem Black is a very disease cold tolerant. Lemon fig, it's a strawberry fig. This is Colonel Lickman's back here, and we haven't really gotten any off it yet. This is the second year growing it. I had it from cuttings last year, and this some of it's grown since last year. So last fall a year ago, this is about 18 months old. That was nothing but a little cutting, and then I like when we have permanent markers and they do this to you. Let's see. It's one of the LSU figs. I can't see because the light's not good. But anyway, that's a quick tour of the container gardenings. I am planning on doing a video on the 10 best fruit trees to grow in the southern zone 8. 8B, 9A, and also do 10 trees that don't, or 10 fruiting plants that don't do good. But that's probably coming out in a month or so, and I'll show you all the 10 that I've grown here. And I could also do one for the different fruit trees that here, but I kind of showed you fruit trees I've done. I've tried a lot of them. These are the ones that kind of work for me. I do want to do a jabacaba. I can grow those, but of course I have to put them into the garage when it gets cold. But I think I can make those. The thing that I have learned, if you do the tropical fruit trees, is when it gets cold, it gets below freezing. Even though they may say they can take down to 28, go ahead and pull them in, because I think if they get damaged or get some cold weather, even if they survive, they tend not to fruit that next year. That's the way my both the longan and the lychee and now it's the Cherry of the Rio Grande, that tends to be what they do. So, but anyway, hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching.